everybody. Welcome to Going Through It with Kenichi
and Natalie.
This is a podcast where we share our innermost thoughts. We share more than our Instagram highlight reel. We talk money, sex, love, because sex is different. No topic is taboo. So
none at all. We talk about it all, what's going on through our minds, things that you might not even share with your therapist sometimes.
Very true. So I'm very excited for today's guest. We have mother.
Writer.
That should be first, right?
Oh,
That's most important. Yeah, writer, actress, dancer. You do it all.
Some days.
So her name is Courtney Romano.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for joining us today.
I'm excited.
So I want to share a little quick story on how I actually met Courtney. It was at her book reading, and her book really helped me through a difficult time. And recently, I was rereading it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to share this with our audience because your book, it's not about the answers, like you say, it's about the questions. And ever since I read that, I've looked at life differently. So 10 years later, why that title?
Well, it's actually called The First 10 Years.
Oh, sorry. Oh my God. You know why I got confused? Because I read on your Instagram 13 years later. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I just wrote something and that was the title.
Yes, so I got confused.
Listen,
sorry.
you can call it whatever you want.
No, the first 10 years.
The first 10 years.
Yeah.
So the first 10 years, why did I name it that?
Yes.
When I wrote it, I was coming to the end of my 20s. And when I was looking into writing it, I was kind of coming from it from two angles. I had done a little bit of marketing, so I kind of had that side to it, that kind of marketing brain. Mainly, I was coming to it from the artist side of just being like, ugh, I got to write this out, and it needs to come out, and I need to share it with people. So when I was bringing those two brains together, I was thinking, like, I'm not an expert. Like, this book isn't about me being the expert. This book, I'm not Stephen Pressfield, War of Art. Do you guys know that book?
No.
Oh, gosh. That's the one.
It's a must read?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And quick. I'll have a whole list that I give you after. I was thinking, like, he's done it for decades. I haven't done it for decades. Like, and just, the other authors that I thought, they're really experts, and they brought me through. And I was like, I'm not an expert. I'm just, like, more of a journalist. I mean, in that sense of just, this is what I'm finding.
Yeah.
How about you guys? Is kind of the vibe of the book. And so I thought, I was just thinking about it through that lens of, like, how do I, who am I? And I'm like, well, I'm just talking about the first 10 years. I'm not talking about a career. I'm not talking about, wild success. I'm talking about the hard stuff, which is from the beginning until a break. If there is a break, I mean, we can talk about, is a break a thing? I don't know if it is, That was one side of it. And then the other side of it that always kind of plays in my mind as someone who creates artistic things for a living and gets frustrated with herself a lot when she can't quite articulate everything is the idea of it takes 10 years to have a overnight success.
Yeah.
So, right? So, like, all that time you put in when no one's watching, all those times you post something online and no one cares. Your mom might like it, but even your mom doesn't like it, and you're like, well, I'm a failure.
Yeah.
My mom likes everything I do. So that idea too, like the idea of 10, about 10 years to become a success, or not to become a success, but when people have these breakthroughs, it's like you don't see all the work they did. And then also the idea of 10 was an idea for me because of I think it's Malcolm Gladwell, who, maybe it was someone else, but there was this idea in the culture that it takes 10 years to actually become a master at something. Might have been Robert Greene. He wrote the book Mastery, another good one. But so this idea that it kept coming to me of, like, it's just about the first 10 years, and what does that mean? What do the first 10 years mean for a career when you don't know where you're going, you don't know what it's going to look like, and you don't have the perspective to look back and know for sure you're going to be okay?
See, until I read your book, that wasn't even a concept that I thought about. Because you see, well, in my eyes, I saw everyone winning. you know, in their 20s. It seems like, especially these days with Instagram, everyone's buying a house and they're like 26 and
preaching to the choir.
Yeah. So with you coming from Pennsylvania and having like a different background than I did, me growing up in Trinidad, then New York, I'm like, wow, someone else is going through this, and we're from like, you know?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I love that.
So it really helped put everything in perspective for me. I'm like, girl, you'll be okay. Like, it's, you know, it's your first 10 years. You have some time.
Yeah.
So
that's
I'm
amazing.
actually obsessed with this idea because this is exactly what I'm going through right now, because I have no frame of reference where the success is coming from and where it's going to go and how to make that happen. So hearing that you have this book out, I think it's so amazing. You were like, you know what, I'm just going to put it in paper, and here's what I'm finding.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, it was you guys know, as artists, like a lot of the time you're not making something because you know how it's going to turn out. You're making something because you just have to do it. And that, I think, goes for the macro scale as well for your life. You don't know how it's going to turn out. You just, you know, there's the impulse. You're going to live through it.
So I have a few things that I took from your book that I want to ask you about. So in the beginning of the book, you made it a point to say this book is not about answers. It's about asking the right questions.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that? Because it's so true.
How did I come up with that? Okay, here's what I'll say. Instagram culture.
Oof.
Right? Okay, right. Everyone's body just did a collective ugh.
Yeah.
Like, Instagram culture is, you know, a symptom of something larger, I think, in our culture that we kind of have to collectively deal with. Like, what are our principles as human beings? Stuff like that. Anyway, I'm going to get to your question. But Instagram culture kind of proliferates the idea that, here, do this diet and you'll be skinny. When you're skinny, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
When you're happy, you'll be rich. And it's like, you know, that's like a really watered down version. But that's at least sometimes how I've interpreted the kind of social media world.
Definitely.
And I know that's not true for me. And I knew that I was going to be saying a lot of things that I found to be true, you know, or I found to be real in my life. But I also knew that people would read this book, that I wasn't trying to give advice to anyone, you know. So that's kind of where that came from for me, is like, this is not about a fact-finding mission of like, now I will do these 5 steps to organize my life into utter success. It's like, we don't have that control. I am not the expert. I don't have the answers. And life can still be a pretty great place to be. Art can be a worthwhile thing to do. A career can be, you know, a pursuit that you should go after, even if we don't have all this shininess to it, right? So I was really trying with that just to scale back expectations for myself, to be like, okay, I don't have to have all the answers, because like,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
And
No one does.
right.
Yeah.
It creates anxiety looking for all those answers.
Right, and thinking that they exist somewhere, and that someone who just bought a house at 26 actually has them, when that person, you know, most likely has, like, you know, a laundry list of the things they are worried and anxious about just as much as you are.
So,
So I'm actually really interested, who were you writing for then, if you weren't coming from the expert standpoint?
You know, kind of for myself, in that I mean, I don't know if everyone feels like this. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. But I kind of think of myself sometimes as like the every woman. Like, I'm just an average gal, you know? Like, I feel that there's something special in me in the sense of, like, I have impulses to do things, and everyone has that kind of ignition in them to do things. But generally, I'm just an average gal, grew up in Pennsylvania, moved to New York, fell in love, had a baby, like nothing quite spectacular, which I'm saying that in a positive way, not like to put myself down at all. Just like there are 7 billion people on the planet, and here we are. sorry, I got thrown off track. What was the question again?
Who were you writing for?
Right. So, right. Okay. So in some ways I was writing for myself. I think I was also writing for my friends that I was auditioning with for 10 years. And we were just hustling all the time and quote unquote failing all the time. And, you know, I was writing for us. I was writing for myself at 22 and what I wish I had known. And I don't know if I had read the book, if I would have been like, oh, I get it now. I think you have to have a certain amount of life lived to really like take it in. But
can I just say, you weren't failing. Just going out there and auditioning, that's winning. A lot of people can't even get up the courage to go chase their dreams, you know? Yeah. So that's a win.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And like hanging out with actors and dancers all the time myself, they usually feel bad when they never hear that yes and keep hearing that no.
It's like, rejection is tough sometimes.
It is. They're the bravest people in the world, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Every part of the job to be rejected. You know, you get more no's than you do yes.
Yeah.
So
when I was just starting out, when I was 22, I made a spreadsheet and I wrote down every audition that I went on and like if I got a callback and if I booked a job, and then I was like highlighting it or whatever, and I realized that I had to go on 25 auditions to get a job or something like that.
Wow.
Or maybe it was 50. I don't know. It was like one of those round numbers. And I just then from then on put in my head like, all right, that's a no, but that's number 14. We're closer.
Some more to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So staying on Instagram, another thing you wrote in your book, you said, we're just beginning to understand what it means to be this new kind of creative in this new kind of world. And yeah, I'm lost. It's a whole new beast, this social media stuff.
No, now, I know the question's for you, but it's crazy how we have to, like, as artists, we have to be our own everything. So as the actor, a lot of these actors know how to light and videotape themselves now, basically like a professional, you know?
Yeah, like she said in the book, you don't really need that middleman anymore. You don't need that agent.
So the whole industry is shifting because people who used to provide that service are like, how are we going to differentiate ourselves to continue business? On Instagram right now, there's a whole service saying, hey, we'll edit everything you have for $500. And it's like, what is the quality of that, you know? That's just not realistic for some of the projects that they think they can do, you know?
But I also feel it makes not making it harder because before you'd be like, oh my gosh, it's so hard to get an agent. It's so hard to get a manager. But now when you're doing it yourself and you're not winning, but you're seeing, it makes it seem like the opportunities are right there. Like if you just do this yourself, every single person could be successful. And that's not a reality.
It's not.
But that's the perception. So it's a harder pill to swallow.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting at too are two different things. So there's the commercial side of things which I would say like social media is a commercial, right? We're advertisement. We're advertising to each other. And that's not inherently bad at all or good. It's just like kind of how it functions.
What it is, yeah.
And you can use it in different ways. But if what you're talking about with the editing and the manipulation of how I guess, are you saying editing like photos edited?
Oh, no, videos.
Oh, videos, like a reel for an actor. Okay. So maybe this is a little bit different, but I think what you're getting at with saying like, you know, the opportunity to make it is right there. Seemingly right there is like, that's kind of the commercial side of things of like making it means what I have X amount of followers or X amount of money or X amount of sponsored posts or like what is that is the question. And that's different for everyone. You know, when I was 25, I would have been like, well, making it as a Broadway show, of course. Don't be daft. Like, of course, right? And now at 35, I think that's an amazing accomplishment, but it's not the thing that I quantify the rest of my life by, right? So that's one part of it. And then there's the artist part of you that is like, and the creative part of you, and that part of you that has that ignition and that impulse that's like, I just want to make things because I want to connect. And social media, we think we're connecting, and sometimes we are, and sometimes we're not, and it's like muddy and confusing, and that's why I think we have this love-hate relationship with it, because the times when we're like, well, show me the shiny thing that I have 10,000 followers and a swipe up feature, you know, give me the blue check mark. That's shiny, but that's not coming from like the artist part of why you wanted to create something to begin with. And I think it just gets confusing.
It is.
Yeah.
It's exhausting sometimes, honestly.
Wildly.
Because even just creative work, a lot of people won't even see you if you don't have a certain number of followers. So it's all intertwined. So my talent is validated by the number of people that decide to follow me. It's kind of sick.
Yeah. I also would just say I have been finding recently, and I don't know if you guys have found this too, that the artists that I'm drawn to through, well, usually, to be honest, my husband's like, have you listened to this person? I'm like, no, Craig, I'm not as cool as you. Like, who is it? Yeah. But like, they're doing these almost like scrappy, low budget, you know, it's my iPhone, and no, I'm not using any apps. And it's kind of these like conceptual pieces that are so just like interesting,
raw.
Conceptually, raw, that I'm almost more intrigued by them. And I have this, I have a theory. It's not really a theory. It's like just probably what everyone is thinking. Is like we're going to go back from that polish, and we're going to swing back to that raw, gritty kind of underdog feel.
Yeah, this way of living can't continue much longer. I feel like it's exhausting. It's only so long. I say maybe 10 more years.
Really?
If that much.
I don't know. I don't know what's in the future with this. I really don't know, because kids are growing up on this like it's a lifeline.
That's true. That's a good point.
So they might be able to handle this and develop it into some different kind of a way where, I don't know, we'll be a different kind of human at that point. I have zero idea how to.
I mean, some of the best singers, for example, that I see on Instagram, they might get 53 likes, but there might be someone else who isn't as talented, who has thousands.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean you're not talented.
No, absolutely
not. You just haven't been found.
And I think it's also, you know, what's difficult, what you're bringing up, when it's difficult, there's a challenge in being able to make your own stuff all the time, right? There's a challenge because you're like, well, I'm the only one procrastinating. I'm the only one sleeping in. Or is that you now have to be the person to go and connect rather than wait for the casting director, wait for the job.
Oh, that's true.
You know, like you're the one who's saying like, hey, I made this. Do you want it? Do you want to talk about it? And that is another layer, I think, of vulnerability that is worthwhile, but, you know, it's just another part of the challenge.
In my own personal journey, I have noticed that a lot of creatives don't realize either at all or soon enough that marketing and business classes are actually integral in keeping your art alive. And I found this out like a year or two ago myself. And it's wild because there's so many people out there who could do it, but they don't know the strategies in getting out there or the things that they have to personally get over to be who they need to be as a business person. So like those people who aren't so talented but have like millions of followers, they figure that part out, you know, not necessarily their own creative voice, you know?
Totally.
And so it's weird how the world works in that way. If you can figure it out one way but still not the other.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about being vulnerable and free-falling, as you said, into failure? Because that is tough for me. That is so uncomfortable.
Girl, yes. It is.
Ugh, I hate it.
So I think the chapter maybe you're referring to, or I think I talk about failure a lot in that. I wrote failure down a lot of times. I think it's on the cover somewhere, like failure. And that, again, in a positive way, you know, like my daughter's learning how to crawl right now. And my husband doesn't want to leave the house because she's a big bruise on her eye from learning how to fall. Yeah.
But that's part of it, though.
It's part of it. And we're like, all right, baby girl, here's a hug, here's a kiss. Get up. Back and crawl. Like, and she's fine, right? She's okay. And, you know, it's the same thing, but when it happens to our egos, we're not like, here's a hug and a kiss, get back to it. We think like, oh, this means I'm an unworthy person that should have never dared try a creative thing in my entire life.
Hashtag truth. Not really. That's anxiety lying to you or something else.
Right. There's someone has said, it's not me, but someone that I've read or listened to on a podcast has said things that are real but not true, right? The thought, the fear of failure is real. It is scary to get up in front of.
It's crippling.
Yes, it is real. But the thing that you're afraid of happening, that is not true necessarily. If no one read my book, if I didn't get onto Broadway, well, let's look at it. I wanted to be on Broadway by the time I was 25, and then I was like, fine, I'll wait till 30. And then I was like, fine, like 32 is fine, whatever. That did not happen. So my worst fear for my 18-year-old, 22-year-old self came true. I missed the deadline. Okay. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? It's so that's what I'm saying. It's like it was real for me. I felt those feelings. Those feelings got me through my 20s. That anxiety brought me right through my 20s. But what I was afraid of ultimately happening, which is somehow I was going to be found out as being the most unworthy, untalented, unhelpful, unlovable, actor, singer, dancer, human woman in the room. Like, that didn't happen. I feel fine. Yeah. And I'm not saying that, like, I guess I'm not saying that it means that I didn't get out of that with a few scars, but the thing that we have in our head that is going to bring us to our knees in defeat, in reality, is never quite that stark.
I need to soak that in, because this is something my husband always tells me. You're not where you truly want to be because you're letting fear hold you back. It's something I struggle with every single day. And no matter how hard I try, I just give in to the fear.
Yeah.
It just cripples me at times. I don't know. So I need to have that attitude. And for me, it comes from, so I went to school, saw myself in corporate America. And like you said, having the security from the day job, right? I was going to have a job/career in corporate America, make enough money to do whatever I wanted. Then I got sick. And for years I was down, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm so old now. Even if I got an internship, I'm going to be older. All of these things. So my worst fear of not being where I said I would be by a certain age happened. And after that sent me into a really bad depression. Yeah. So if I had that mentality, like, girl, okay, your worst fear came true. What now?
Right.
What now?
Right.
But I was like, oh my God, my life is over.
But dude, it's hard when you're in that emotional, psychosomatic state of, like, your heart is beating and you're sweating and you don't know why, you just can't leave the house and all that stuff. It is really, really difficult to be like, hey, let me just get some perspective. We can't do that. I never did that, It's hard. And I think it honestly, the thing that I always remembered and kind of like tried to reiterate to myself was, you will not feel good doing this thing that you want to be doing. You're just not going to feel good. You're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel like you're scared. Not doing things that were misaligned with me, like, oh, I don't want to be in this situation. This is bad for me. Just like, I want to do this. This is where my heart is. I am so scared. And stop feeling like it's going to feel good just because you want it.
It's true.
I think I'm a little ahead of that because I used to sit in those feelings too. But honestly, this is a development in my life in the last 3 weeks, where
amazing.
No, seriously, and it is in that downtime where I had to talk to myself and say, Nat, when this is happening, what is actually happening? Your life is not in danger. You're not bleeding. You're not dying. So what is the real problem? Nothing. It's just an event. How are you going to adjust, And then there's the other perspective of, do you guys know that show, The Good Place? Yeah. How you do one good thing, you get a check, a good point. If you do a bad thing, you get negative points or whatever. That the world is like that. Whatever is good, there's a trade-off. Not that trade-off is bad, but, it's like, if you want to do X, Y, and Z, it's going to eat time into your sleep schedule. That's just what's going to happen,
Right.
you know? There's a balance in it. I hope I'm explaining that right.
I get it.
You know? So being grounded in the whole, this is what actually exists, kind of helps. And it proved to work, because something for me that happened this week, which I'm not really willing to talk about right now, but the process is that this thing happened, and all of my like anxiety and all the frogs jumped into my throat, and I'm like, nope, we're not gonna do that right now, because what's happening? Nothing. It's okay.
That's
You're not
incredible.
hurt. You're done. You know.
Yeah.
The
So
fact that you could do that in that moment is significant.
Yeah, 100%.
thanks. I've been trying to pat myself on the back.
Oh,
Oh man, yeah.
Thanks. But I think just so that we can get all types of perspectives, how we're still stuck in fear, how we're like getting through it, and some who have actually gotten past it and
Oh no,
accept it.
Don't
No.
put me in that category. No.
Just like-
That's hilarious.
I think for the rest of your life, you're always gonna
I mean,
battle
yeah.
fear a little bit.
Absolutely.
It's how you handle it. I think
Exactly.
that
That's
changes.
what it's handling it that
Exactly.
you have to deal with.
I'm at the point where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look in the mirror every day and I'm like, I'm a badass, okay? And I can make whatever I want happen. And I don't have to let anyone or anything hold me back. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, that's okay too. Have plan B, C, D, whatever it takes. And I had to realize that happiness, well, first I had to decide what my happiness was exactly, like what happiness meant to me. And is that even a real thing? Like, I've been on a journey this summer. Have you ever been happy? Like, totally, completely just joy. Well, you have a baby. So I'm sure that moment, was like really happy.
At
But
4
I mean,
a.m. when she wants to
overall.
feed, I'm always feeling just sunny as can be. No, you know, I listened to your episode on happiness.
Yeah.
And you guys were talking about contentment and satisfaction. It was a really good episode. Everyone should go back and listen to it.
Thank
if they
you.
haven't already. And I think I have had moments in my life where I have felt, Courtney, you are in the right place. This is it. This is exactly where you need to be. And not even like, I'm in the right place because I'm going to meet this person. This is going to happen. Da, 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 da. Like, literally, I have had moments in my life where I'm walking down the street. 0 is happening to me. 0 is coming my way. And I have felt like, yeah, this is exactly right. One of those moments, actually, I don't know if I write about it in this book or not, but I have written about it. I was 23 years old, living in New York City, was single for the first time in a long time, was auditioning. I was non-equity. I didn't have my equity card at that point, so there's like a whole other thing for theater actors that, you know, the equity, non-equity world. There's non-equity. It was February in New York, so enough said.
Yeah.
And I was coming out of a catering gig, and again, enough said. I was just like, I had like $200 in my bank account. I had to call my parents for grocery money, which I'm a very proud person, and I like to stand on my own 2 feet. And I mean, not that my parents have provided every opportunity for me in the world. It's not like I created this life in a vacuum at all, but I didn't want to ask for grocery money. And I had this feeling. I was walking down Central Park South, right underneath Central Park, and I was broke and cold and tired and no love life. And I looked up at the buildings right there that, you know, they're all so grand and beautiful and costly. And I thought, I wanted to move to New York, and these are now my buildings. This is my neighborhood. This is my city, and I'm here because I wanted to be here, and this is mine. And I was fine. Like, literally, that moment was happiness in, like, I'm not going to say nirvana, like I wasn't floating on a lily pad or anything, but I did have this sense of like
something clicked.
Yeah.
In you.
And it was a second, right? And so when you guys were talking in that other episode about happiness and satisfaction and contentment, I actually think happiness is like a roller coaster, like, whoa, that was amazing, right? And contentment and satisfaction is like oozing into the richness of what your life is. You know what
I
I mean?
That's a good
completely
way.
agree with you. Like, this summer, I figured it out. Like, happiness can be fleeting. You have moments.
Right.
But what I really want to achieve is feeling whole.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I think
Yeah.
that helped a lot. you know, and
Yeah.
how I looked at life. And I was going somewhere with that before, but I don't remember what I was talking about. So
No, I love that idea of
Yeah.
feeling whole
yeah.
and just feeling like, yeah, like nothing's missing. And if fear comes up, I am whole and can handle it. And if happiness comes up, I can be whole and handle it. And I don't have to be overtaken by either.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I'm excited, you know.
That actually has a lot to do with trust within yourself. Because I'm the first to be like, yo, do I trust myself with this? I don't know. Other times, I really, really do. So there was a point in my life where I'm like, is filmmaking the thing? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do I trust this? This year, I totally, like,
You embraced it.
Huh?
You embraced it.
Yeah, like, it's the thing. And also, it's like, Nat, you're the person that if they bet on you, you win them money. That's what you do. And, like, I guarantee that. I'm just good at what I do.
Yeah.
Either way, the point is that trust in yourself brings in that feeling of groundedness and wholeness. And
Right.
having belief, I guess faith is the word, that you are malleable enough, I guess, to handle whatever gets thrown your way.
Well, and what you're making me think of too is trust in yourself, trust in the world, you know, the universe, whatever. Some people call it God or love or whatever, but trust that it's going to work out for the highest good, because that's kind of like
It has to.
an
That's-
acorn.
yeah.
An acorn like isn't like one day I'm going to be an oak tree. Damn it, I'm going to prove mom and dad wrong.
Yeah.
It just has the impulse,
Yeah.
right? It just has the ignition, and then it just does that. And so, like, knowing this is a law, you know, of how we live is, now we're getting real esoteric.
Yeah.
It's like too early in the day for this. I haven't had a cocktail yet.
I remember what I was going to say, that happiness is expectation minus reality. And that's what I fixed, my expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to get disappointed if you set your expectations really, really high for yourself, unrealistic expectations. And I think that's what I had for myself.
So with you saying that, I'm going to go ahead and show you the other side of the coin, because with me, when I realized that, I went all the way left, and it's like, then what is life without any expectations? And got super depressed about that. Like, am I just supposed to take whatever comes to me and just deal with it? Don't I deserve
So
things,
I'll give you an
know?
example with my life, why I looked at it like that. For me, it was having my own career, being equally yoked with my husband. And at that point, I thought equally yoked meant like bringing in the same amount of money, you know? But at this point, that's not realistic with my health and with everything. And that's okay. Like, there are other ways that I bring a lot to the table that's not finances. You know, so it's just rearranging how you look at yourself and just giving yourself a break. Like, life is tough.
Yeah.
You have everyone else in the world to criticize you, and that's how you're going to be to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be good to yourself.
Isn't it amazing the things that we kind of like whisper in our own heads that we would never say out loud?
Yeah.
Like, I think about this with my baby, because I am really, my husband and I are both like trying to be real particular with how we speak about women's bodies, men's bodies for that matter, how I talk about myself. My body has completely changed since giving birth.
Yeah.
And I also, like, as a side note to my biography, also used to teach in the New York City fitness industry. So there's this whole other layer going on inside my head constantly.
Yeah, that level is intense.
It's an intense place to be after being in the other intense place, which is like the Broadway and like theater community. So anyway, I've been really thinking, like, the words that I say when out loud that I'm not even thinking about are going to turn into her subconscious, right?
Yes.
It's going to be what she has in her at 20 years old. And so those words that I say better be really supportive and encouraging and beautiful and true. And so anyway, to your point, I've been looking at, I can really focus on what I say outwardly, but then I've been focusing on the words that I've been saying inwardly. And look, I'm not saying this all comes from my mother. I'm just saying we get them from all places in culture, and our friends and what we see on TV, and like, you know, and bad habits that we form as a kid or whatever. But like, it's amazing how you can say, like, I have this expectation for myself, and if I don't hit it, I'm a terrible person.
It sent me into depression.
I mean, and what is that? To your point, Natalie, like, what is that? That's not a real threat. That's actually nothing, right? But we let it rule us.
Yeah.
If we aren't aware of it like you are.
And yeah, money is necessary for life, but if I'm not making a certain amount and I die, I can't take it with me.
Right.
So I need to find joy on this earth in other things that are more realistic and more meaningful to me. I'm not, and then I had to ask myself, why do I want to have a certain amount of money? You know, why? That's not what I'm about. I'm about giving back and charity. So why does it matter?
I think if more people asked the questions like you did, we'd live in a much happier country, first of all, and world.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, to circle it back to what you said before about what's in the book, like, this is about asking the right questions. That is the right question to ask. Why do I actually want this?
I'm telling you, I reread your book. And I was like, oh, it's so funny how the universe gives you signs, because out of all the books, well, I don't know if you've seen the front cover of a book. It's like pink. It's so colorful. It just stood out. And I'm like,
an abstract kind of a painting sort of thing.
Done by my friend Match Zimmerman, who's an artist, and all I said to him was, I want you to do the book cover, and you're amazing, and he just did it. So shout out to Match.
Great job.
For real.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
He did a
And
great job.
let's make an effort to pass it along.
Yes. Sorry. No, because I hang around college kids. So, like, this is definitely a thing I'll send to them. Some of them aren't even hitting 20 yet. So I think this is great, because I'm also that type of person. I'm an innate teacher.
Yeah.
It sucked when I found this out, but it's what I do. So since I happen to be around kids, in that time that I teach them technical theater, sometimes life lessons comes in, you know. So yes, I will definitely be telling them, read this book the first 10 years before you even hit the first 10 years.
And for you guys listening out there, definitely go check it out. Remind them of the title.
The First 10 Years.
Courtney Romano. So, okay, I do have a serious question for you.
Sure.
So it's years later, right?
Oh, I was waiting for this. Okay.
Is there anything you would change? If you, I know you don't remember exactly now because it's been years what you had in the book, but is there anything
that I would change in the book?
Yeah, or your thoughts have changed about anything?
Oh man. Well, I have a fear of reading anything I've ever written, so I haven't read it in a while.
Yeah.
I know that I probably have a lot of grammar mistakes in there that I would change. No, serious question. I don't know. I don't know if you're saying, like, from a philosophical standpoint where I am now, do I think philosophically different about what I posed?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Nothing. Or so anything to add, maybe not change, anything you would add if you can go back.
Yeah. I think maybe I would dig more into, like, living the questions and living the contradictions and allowing there to be space for everything. And also, you know, letting there be space for everything, for the good, the bad, and the ugly, and allowing that to affect you, not to shut it down or be in denial, but really living through it and dealing with it and processing it is only going to make you a better artist. And you know what? Here's what I would add. Sorry, that was like a weird way to get to, like, what I actually think.
Yeah.
Recently, I've been really working on my confidence, which I think sometimes I come across as a very confident person.
You do.
But, you know, like, we all have an inner and an outer life. And sometimes my confidence, my lack of confidence shows itself in the way that I will accommodate and kind of mold myself into an idea of who I think would be palatable for everyone else in the room, whatever that is, whether that's with family or friends or colleagues or professional. I'll just be like, what do I think they need? What do I think they need? Okay, this is who I am. And what I've been really working on recently is having the confidence to be like, no, this is me, and that's just and that's just what it is. And maybe sometimes people are going to be disappointed by it. Sometimes I'm going to be uncomfortable by saying, you know, like, I don't live in a house with a white picket fence and like 2.5 kids and a dog. And, you know, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Queens, and we're probably going to move our bed into the living room so that we don't have to share the room with our 8-month-old. And I'm cool with that. Like, you know,
because you have your family, and that's important, you know.
And it's a challenge, you know. It's a challenge to figure out how 3 people can make it, and a cat who's crazy can make it in a you know 800 square foot apartment in Astoria. So anyway, all that to say, I think maybe I would add like something about knowing that your confidence isn't always about coming out and being like the loudest, proudest person in the room. Sometimes it's just being like that lighthouse on the shoreline and being like, I know where I stand, I know who I am, and I have absolutely nothing to prove to anyone. And I'm just saying that's what I would add, because I'm working on that right now. I'm not successful at that quite yet.
Yeah. So speaking of your kid and being a creative, what is that like?
Dude. Oh, gosh. Well, you know what's funny? When I was pregnant, at the beginning of my pregnancy, when not many people knew, I had an impulse to dance all the time. And I grew up and I was a dancer, and that the dancing led to the acting, led to the singing, and that's kind of why I ended up in New York. So dance is kind of this like just like North Star for me in a way, even though I haven't done a lot in recent years. But all that to say, there was something about my body creating physically another body, which is like like that's crazy. We do it all the time. Babies are being born all the time. It's nuts. But there's something about that, I think, that really sparked something in me. So immediately in my pregnancy, 2 things. I was in this like beautiful space of just like I'm dancing, and I'm just filming myself dancing in my living room, and I'm just sharing it with my friend because it's this beautiful moment, and like I can't wait to look back on it. And then the other side of my brain that was like, okay, write down everything you've ever needed to write and have it all done and get it off to contests and get that producer to look at it and get that editor to look at it, and inside, like, you know, like went crazy with like you've gotta conquer everything before this 9 months is up. Now, getting through the other side of labor, which is another story. Another story for another day. Another podcast. Which I actually think is worth talking about. Not with me, but I think
in general.
That's anyway. There's just a lot of good things to say about that.
Good things you say.
Fortifying things.
Okay.
Not necessarily good. You know, good is subjective. But yeah. But anyway, when I got through all of that, I was like, okay, like that was a hurricane, and here I am on the other side, and I've got to kind of put everything back together. And I started writing a lot more poetry, actually. So I've written this book. I've written a few screenplays, pilots, things like that, as well as like before Elle, my daughter, was born, I thought I was going to write another like more essay form book. So I had started working on that. After she came, it was like all I had was poetry, and I just started writing things like on Instagram, honestly. And Instagram became kind of like my first draft. My husband is this actually amazing photographer. He's a street photographer, and his photographs are like paintings, like they're amazing.
We'll have to check him out.
Yeah, at Craig Hansen. I think that's it. I don't know. Maybe it's Craig S. Hansen. It doesn't matter. But he is really particular with his art and what he shares and his photos, and he like really crafts them, and that's his process. My process is like, blah, 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 you know,
put
like,
it out.
I don't know. I have to share. Like, it's just 2 different processes. So for me, for Instagram, as I'm sleep deprived and I'm going through mastitis, which is, I don't know if you're familiar, but when you get an infection in your boobs as you're trying to breastfeed, so it becomes literally the most painful thing, and it feels like you have a fever and the flu the whole time. So all these things were happening. Like, I would just be in this foggy haze of just like, well, this is what I want to write today, and my thumbs would just go, and it would be a short little thing, and I'd be like, send it out to the universe as like an SOS, or like as a thank you, universe. I'm upset. This is tough, but thank you, you know. And then from there, you know, I never wanted to necessarily do anything with it. I literally was just creating out of a space of impulse, and people started to connect with me on it. Probably because
they're really good.
Oh, thank you. I also attach really cute baby pictures. So I
Yes.
think there's a pull. There's a little bait and switch, but people started connecting to it, and I felt like, wow, okay, connection is my metric right now. I don't care. So I've actually started to work on another book compiled of breaking news.
Well, I can't wait. I cannot wait to read it.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like you've lost, well, definitely you haven't lost your creativity since having a baby. Would you say it's harder though to just focus? Because most moms say they lose themselves, and
well, yeah, but who doesn't lose themselves in the eye of a storm that's going to make them, like The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. Do you know that? Okay, so it's The Hero's Journey because it's literally every screenplay follows these things. The hero gets the call, then he doesn't answer the call, and then he and there's the one part where he's in the belly of the whale, right?
Yeah.
Where he gets swallowed up by the whale, and then he comes out on the other side like stronger, right? I mean, we know this story, whether Joseph Campbell articulated it or not, we know it. It's the belly of the whale, man. That's motherhood. That's birth. It's the belly of the whale. Do you have time? No. Do you have focus? Well, sometimes no. And sometimes if you really have to get something done, you have more focus than you've ever had before because you literally have 5 minutes before she wakes up and she needs you and you can't focus on it anymore. Someone told me before I was even close to pregnant, and I was saying, like, I'm just scared, I'm going to lose, like, I have momentum, I'm trying to, like, do this thing. And it always stood with me. She said, Courtney, you don't know when you do have children, if you have children, you don't even know what kind of art you can create after having them. Like, you think that they're the obstacle, and they might just be the way.
So has she become your inspiration, you would say?
Well, she has made me see life in a completely different way, and that sounds trite, and that's what everyone says. Like, oh,
but some of the cliches are actually true, though.
Yeah, because you're responsible for this whole other human being who can't even register it for the next maybe 5-6 years.
Right, and somehow a choice that you made created an entire soul, being to be here, and all the things that I refused to work on. My husband and I have a great relationship, and I think part of a great relationship is like making you face your things. He makes me face a lot of things in a beautiful, good way. But this kid, the things that I have not been wanting to face with him, this kid will bring them out.
Yeah. So one last question for you: what's the greatest thing about being a mom?
For me, I feel like the world has expanded. I feel like there's more everything. There's more good, there's more bad, there's more confusion, there's more delight, there's more beauty, there's more sadness, there's more of everything. And as an artist and a woman who's trying to process life in a meaningful way before I go, getting to experience more is actually, I think, what I would define as success.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing. I'm telling you, your book, twice now, it's gotten me through some things. So, guys, make sure you check out her book, The First 10 Years. I said it right this time, right?
You did.
The First 10 Years. And you can follow her on Instagram at
Courtney Romano.
Okay. And, guys, remember you could stream us on, you want to do that?
Spotify, Google, iTunes, Luminary, and Stitcher. There we go.
I feel like we're forgetting one, but
you can watch us on YouTube.
Exactly.
And follow us on Instagram at goingthrough_it.
Yes. This has been Going Through It with Kenichi
and Natalie. Find out next week what we're going through.